Well, I think the right strategy for the great mass of humanity is to specialize. Nobody wants to go to a doctor that's half proctologist and half dentist, you know. And I tell young lawyers who frequently come to me and say, how can I quit practicing law and become a billionaire instead? And so I say, well, it reminds me of a story they told about Mozart. A young man came to him and he said, I want to compose symphonies and I want to talk to you about that. And Mozart said, how old are you? And the man said, 22. And Mozart said, you're too young to do symphonies. And the guy said, but you were writing symphonies when you were 10 years old. He says, yes, but I wasn't running around asking other people how to do it.
Carol, we wish you well. And but in investment management at Berkshire, and I think they'll be right more often than they're wrong. Charlie?
Well, Warren and I are a little older than some people, and
They're everybody.
and we're not the most flexible, probably in the whole world. And of course, if something as extreme as this internet development happens, and you don't catch it, why, other people are going to blow by you. And I don't mind not having caught Amazon early. The guy is kind of a miracle worker. It's very peculiar. I give myself a pass on that. But I feel like a horse's ass for not identifying Google better. I think Warren feels the same way.
Yeah.
We screwed up.
He's saying we blew it. And we did have some insights into that because we were using them at GEICO and we were seeing the results produced, and we saw that we were paying $10 a click or whatever it might have been for something that at a marginal cost to them it was exactly zero, and we saw it was working for us. So
we can see in our own operations how well that Google advertising was working, and we just sat there sucking our thumbs. So we're ashamed. We atone. We're trying to atone. Maybe Apple was atonement.
When he says sucking our thumbs, I'm just glad he didn't use some other example. That was the most interesting thing. Actually, I didn't have any cash at the time, and I went down and borrowed the money, and I bought it for my wife, and I borrowed the money, and the loan officer said, would you like to borrow some money to buy a shotgun as well? Charlie, tell him about the one you missed.
Well, I have two investments that come to mind. When I was young and poor, I spent $1,000 once buying an oil royalty that paid me $100,000 a year for a great many years. But I only did that once in a lifetime. On a later occasion, I bought a few shares of Elridge Oil, which went up 30 times rather quickly. But I turned down 5 times as much as I bought. It was the dumbest decision of my whole life. So if any of you have made any dumb decisions, look up here and feel good about yourself. And I also want to report that your vice chairman is getting new social distinction. I've been invited during this gathering to go to a happy hour put on by the Bitcoin people. And I've tried to figure out what the Bitcoin people do in their happy hour, and I finally figured it out. They celebrate the life and work of Judas Iscariot.
Is your invitation still good? Well, Bitcoin, actually, on my honeymoon in 1952, my bride, 19, and I, 21, stopped in Las Vegas. We just got, my Aunt Alice gave me the car and said, have a good time, and we went west. So we stopped in the Flamingo, and I looked around, and I saw all of these well-dressed, they dressed better in those days, well-dressed people who had come in some cases thousands of miles away. And this was before jets, so transportation wasn't as good. And they came to do something that every damn one of them knew was mathematically dumb. And I told Susie, I said, we are going to make a lot of money. I mean, imagine people going to stick money on some roulette number with a 0 and a 00 there and knowing the percent. They all could do it, and they just do it. And I have to say, Bitcoin has rejuvenated that feeling in me. Charlie and I have seen the extremes in human behavior and in so many unexpected ways. And
Now we get it every night.
yeah,
Extremes of human behavior.
yeah,
All we got to do is turn on the television.
yeah. I'm glad to use that example. We're trying to generate ideas and investment, and we do not believe in telling the world what we're doing every day, except to the extent that we're legally required. But it's a good idea. Charlie?
Well, one of the reasons we have trouble with these questions is because Berkshire is so very peculiar. There's only one thing like it. We have a different kind of unbureaucratic way of making decisions. There aren't any people in headquarters. We don't have endless committees deliberating forever and making bad decisions. We're radically different, and it's awkward being so different. But I don't want to be like everybody else because this has worked better. So I think you're just going to have to endure us. Well, all my ancestors came from Northern Europe, so I'm very partial to the place. On the other hand, if you ask me how I would vote on Brexit if I lived in Britain, I don't even know. It just strikes me as a horrible problem. And I'm glad it's theirs, not mine.
But if I called you tomorrow and said we had a deal in UK, you'd tell me.
I would go in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you tell me.
Those are my kind of people. I understand them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't own any indexes, and I have always been willing to own just 2 or 3 stocks, and I have not minded that everybody who teaches finance in law school and business school teaches that what I'm doing is wrong. It isn't wrong. It's worked beautifully. I don't think you need a portfolio of 50 stocks if you know what you're doing. And I hope my heirs will just sit.
My heirs hope that I'll change my will.
I once told a very great man at dinner after he'd written a very great book, I said, you know, you're never going to write another great book like that. And he was deeply offended. And I've read his 4 subsequent books, and I'm totally right. To write one great book is a lot to do in one lifetime. And the people aren't holding back on you when they don't do more. It's hard.
But you ought to make the most of the first one you got.
Yes.
Yeah, you're lucky, you know.
Yes.
We were very fortunate. I would have blown the chance to buy See's Candy, but Charlie said, "Don't be so cheap," basically, and we still got it at a pretty good price. And we learned a lot.
It's amazing how much we've learned over the years.
Yeah,
and if we hadn't, the record would be so much worse.
Yeah.
At any given time, what we already knew was not going to be enough to take us to the next step. That's what makes it difficult. Think of all the people you know that have tried to take one extra step and have fallen off a cliff.
Well, on that happy note, we will conclude the meeting. And